Imagine a peaceful morning. The world feels still, calm, balanced. Then one disagreement, one spark, one misunderstanding, and everything changes. From wars that shape history to petty arguments that ruin friendships, conflict seems to follow humanity everywhere. But the haunting question is, why? Are humans naturally wired for conflict? Or is it something we've learned through culture and circumstance? Are we doomed to fight? Or simply driven to survive? Let's take a step back in time. Before cities, before nations, before laws, there were small tribes. Humans depended on cooperation to hunt, to share resources, to protect one another. Without unity, survival was impossible. Yet even then, conflict existed. Over territory, food, status, and mates. Anthropologists studying early societies discovered a strange paradox. The same traits that made humans cooperative also made them competitive. The same instincts that bonded groups together turned them against outsiders. Psychologically, this is called in-group versus out-group bias. It's an ancient mental shortcut that helped our ancestors survive. Trust those who look and think like you. Be cautious of those who don't. In a dangerous, uncertain world, this bias made sense. But as society evolved, that survival mechanism never fully disappeared. It just took on new forms: nationalism, prejudice, rivalry, even online arguments. Neuroscience reveals that conflict isn't just cultural, it's chemical. Deep in the brain lies the amygdala, the center that processes threat and fear. When we feel challenged or disrespected, the amygdala lights up, preparing us for fight or flight. It doesn't matter if the threat is physical or emotional, the brain reacts the same way. A rude comment can trigger the same circuitry as an approaching predator. But here's where it gets interesting. Just as the brain is wired for aggression, it's also wired for empathy. Mirror neurons, cells that fire when we observe another person's pain or joy, are the biological foundation of compassion. This means that within the same brain lies the architecture for both cruelty and kindness, for conflict and cooperation. Evolutionary psychologists call this the dual inheritance of human nature. We are both warriors and peacemakers. The impulse to fight protects us. The impulse to connect sustains us. Humanity has survived not because we are purely aggressive or purely cooperative, but because we learned to balance the two. Think about modern life. We rarely face physical predators anymore, yet our psychological defenses remain hypersensitive. A colleague's criticism, a stranger's political opinion, a disagreement online, all can ignite the same primal reaction. We want to defend, attack, win. Conflict, in many ways, has become symbolic, a fight for identity, respect, and validation. But aggression isn't always destructive. In its rawest form, it's energy, force, drive, passion. Without it, there would be no progress, no revolution, no courage to challenge injustice. Aggression only turns dark when it's unregulated, when ego replaces empathy. Psychologist Erich Fromm once said, "The history of man is the history of his struggle to make himself human." And that struggle often happens within, between our instinct to dominate and our yearning to understand. Let's explore this inner war more closely. Every human being carries what Jung called the shadow, the repressed, darker impulses of our psyche. The desire to control, to lash out, to prove superiority. These live in everyone. Denying them doesn't erase them, it just gives them power from the dark. But when you face your shadow, when you acknowledge your capacity for anger, envy, or violence, you begin to integrate it. You transform raw aggression into assertiveness, destruction into creation. That's why Jung believed that true peace doesn't come from rejecting our darker instincts, but from understanding them. Modern psychology agrees. Studies show that suppression of anger leads to greater stress, anxiety, and even physical illness. But when expressed consciously, through boundaries, creativity, or communication, anger becomes a tool of self-awareness, not destruction. Still, humanity's larger conflicts, wars, genocides, political violence, reveal how fragile this balance truly is. When fear and scarcity dominate, empathy shrinks. When people are dehumanized, the shadow of the collective takes over. History shows us that conflict isn't an anomaly. It's what happens when we forget our shared humanity. But there's another side to the story. Even in the darkest chapters of human history, cooperation has always re-emerged. When bombs fall, people rescue strangers. When disasters strike, communities rebuild together. Our instinct to connect, to rebuild, to care, it's just as primal as our instinct to fight. That's the paradox of being human. We are capable of both cruelty and compassion in equal measure. The potential for both lives within us, waiting for the conditions that call it forth. So, are we predisposed to conflict? Yes, but not doomed to it. The same evolutionary wiring that sparks division also contains the blueprint for peace. The question isn't whether conflict exists, it's whether we've evolved enough to rise above the primitive ways we handle it. Philosophically, this touches the core of moral psychology. Thinkers from Hobbes to Rousseau debated whether humans are naturally good or evil. Hobbes saw humanity as brutal without order, each person a potential threat to another. Rousseau believed the opposite, that society corrupts the innate goodness of man. But perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Humans aren't born good or evil, we're born capable of kindness or cruelty, depending on which parts of ourselves we nurture. Conflict arises not from nature alone, but from how we choose to channel it. Look at cooperation. It's not just an ideal, it's a biological necessity. Our brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, when we trust and help others. Cooperation literally feels good because evolution designed it that way. That's how civilizations were built, not through constant fighting, but through collective effort. Every innovation, every act of art or progress began with collaboration. Even competition, when healthy, can push people to grow. The key difference lies in intention. Conflict born of fear divides. Conflict born of curiosity transforms. In relationships, workplaces, or politics, our instinctive aggression can either destroy bridges or strengthen them. When channeled consciously, through debate, through honesty, through courage, it becomes a force for understanding. But when left unchecked, it becomes chaos. The real challenge isn't eradicating conflict, it's learning to master it, to let disagreement become dialogue, to recognize that opposing views aren't threats, but opportunities to evolve. Because if aggression is in our DNA, so is empathy. If violence is a possibility, so is forgiveness. Humanity's progress depends not on suppressing our darker side, but on transforming it, turning the urge to conquer into the will to create. Imagine if every argument, every rivalry, every moment of anger became a moment of inquiry instead. What part of me is reacting right now? What fear is this protecting? What truth am I not seeing? That level of awareness is what separates instinct from consciousness. And maybe that's the next step in human evolution. Not a world without conflict, but a world where conflict leads to wisdom. Because when we understand our own nature, the raw, complex mix of aggression and compassion, we stop being controlled by it. We begin to choose. So, are humans predisposed to conflict? Yes. But perhaps that's not a curse. It's an invitation to evolve beyond our impulses, to learn what cooperation truly means, to prove that even though the fire of aggression burns within us, it can light the path, not destroy it. If this reflection made you think about human nature, about your own reactions, your own conflicts, take a moment before you scroll away. Ask yourself, when you face disagreement, do you seek to win or to understand? Because that answer might reveal more about our species than any war or peace treaty ever could. And if you're drawn to exploring the deep psychology of what makes us human, the light, the dark, and everything in between, subscribe, share, and keep questioning with me. Because understanding our nature isn't just philosophy, it's survival.